joining me. My name is Webby. I am the founder of SoulFire Inspiration, which exists to set your soul on fire through music and conversation. And all this is so that you're inspired to live intentionally and purposefully. Karibu sana. We're in a conversation about overcoming fear, and we're just about to get into this week's reflection as part of that conversation. And to do that, I'd like to begin by reading a scripture. I'm going to be reading the book of 2 Timothy chapter 1 verse 7 out of the New Living Translation, and this is what it says. For God has not given us a spirit of fear and timidity, but of power, love, and self-discipline. For God has not given us a spirit of fear and timidity, but of power, love, and self-discipline. The reason why I began with the scripture is because it is the foundation of what I'm basically going to be talking about today, and you're going to see that. This week's reflection is about using your words. Your words are a powerful tool which you use every single day to communicate. You probably don't see words as tools or as weapons, so to speak, but they are, and you should. And in regard to the conversation about overcoming fear, this week we're basically looking at how we can use our words to aid in the progressive journey of overcoming fear. Fear in whatever capacity and in whatever form. At this point, I think we can agree, and we will have seen by this moment, by this point, that fear is a limiter. It is the thing that stops you from going into uncharted land, dreaming bigger, taking on new challenges, and doing things you've never done before. Fear is a limiting belief that makes you think you are inadequate and unable to rise up to any new occasion, any new occurrence, any new anything, simply because it causes you to focus on your inadequacies rather than on the possibilities. Now, if you go back to that scripture that I've read a few moments ago, then you'll also realize that fear is a spirit, and it is a spirit that you, my friend, should reject. Fear is not your portion. I said that in the last video, and I've been saying it throughout this conversation. It is not for you. A fear-ridden life is not for you. There is a life of possibilities, of overcoming, of victory that God intended and created for you to live. There is a life that you're supposed to live, and fear is the one roadblock that will stop you from living that life if you let it. Which brings us to what I mentioned as the reflection for this week, which is words. I'd like to read something for you that, if you forget everything else I'm going to say at this moment, that you'd at least go with this. And it is this. In regards to the scripture that I have read out of 2 Timothy chapter 1 verse 7, set your heart onto believing this truth, the truth that God has not given you the spirit of fear, but of love, power, and self-discipline, and speak that out. So set your heart onto believing this truth and speak it out, because what you keep proclaiming, you will eventually see. What does that look like in everyday life experiences? Say, for example, you're faced with an unideal circumstance. I'd say that twice to make sure that I said it right. An unideal circumstance. Fear is very likely one of the first reactions you might have, especially if you don't believe you have what it takes to rise up to whatever challenge is in front of you at that moment. It is in this moment that you should use your words and declare something like, I will not fear in this moment or in this circumstance, because I have the ability or the power to overcome. The reason why your words are so powerful is because words are drawn out of conviction. I've come to learn and to appreciate that belief is a much stronger driver than theoretical knowledge. It's one thing for you to know, for example, that fear is not meant for you. A fear-ridden life is not for you, okay? But it's a completely different thing when you actually believe that. And when you believe that and you speak it out, what you're doing is you're giving that belief an opportunity to become a conviction that becomes your reality. A belief will cause you or will push you or will encourage you or will sustain you, whichever way you want to apply it, whatever word you want to use to describe your motion or your action. Belief is the thing that's going to cause you to jump into action, to make a decision, to live by a different set of rules, or to set a different set of rules for whatever. Knowledge is simply just information that you collect and keep. So you may know something, but that knowledge is better and is more useful to you if you begin to use it, or rather you begin to rely on it as a belief, if you assimilate it into your life as a belief. I don't know how many different ways I can say that, but I really hope you get this. And so if, for example, going back to the scripture that I read a few moments ago, if you take those words and you now know them, but you begin to believe them, and you give life to your belief by speaking out in the midst of whatever circumstances you're facing, then that becomes your new reality. Fear cannot bind you or cannot hold you down when you believe that you can and that you will. Fear cannot hold you back from taking on new challenges when you see yourself as able to learn, able to try, able to move, able to accomplish, able to be. Fear will diminish from your life and your faith will increase, because you will always see the possibilities. And that's the paradigm shift that is so necessary to helping you live the life that God intended for you to live, and for you to become the person that you are meant to become. So like I said, if you've forgotten everything, or if you're going to forget everything that I've said in this video up to this point, I want you to remember this, that you're better off believing a truth that will sustain you in the experience of everyday life, rather than just accumulating knowledge that you just keep and it does nothing for you. You just are aware, but it doesn't do anything. It doesn't influence your decisions. It doesn't influence your action. It doesn't even influence your associations. I think it is very important that I should mention in this moment that fear also grows in certain environments. If there are things that you do, or there are people that you probably spend time around, or who come into your space every once in a while, or you happen to be in certain spaces that if you look back at the pattern, you will notice that perhaps you're constantly feeling anxious and fearful, then it's time for you to make a change as well. Fear doesn't just attack your mind and your heart. Fear also grows or comes out, or emanates out of certain environments. Fear-ridden lives are not meant for the believers, people who know that they are able to and they can. But if they're constantly in environments where fear is perpetuated more than faith, then it's going to be a real big struggle for your belief to become a conviction and then to become your reality. I hope you understand that. And I hope that now that gives you a very different set of parameters to work within, and to begin to see that, yes, while you're a human being, you will feel fear, you will struggle with it at different points of time. But if you use the weapon of your words to decree that it is not for you, and that you will not be afraid in this moment, whatever that moment will be, or in this circumstance, whatever that will be as well, then you're very well on your way to becoming a victor, because you're operating from a very different belief system, not a fear system. So my desire for you is that you will begin to live a life that has a lot more faith-filled responses than fear-induced ones. And this is what I really hope your life turns out into. I hope that this inspires and encourages and helps you. I hope that in whatever circumstance you're facing right now, you can begin to see the possibilities and begin to see yourself as an overcomer, because you are. So fear is not something that you should live in or live with. It is not for you. Put that aside, begin to feed your faith, and begin to see the possibilities and to see the future as bright rather than as uncertain, as everyday life experience will probably keep telling you that it is. I'm not saying that the future is not uncertain, if that makes any sense. But while it is, you reserve the right to decide how you're going to approach it. I hope this has been helpful. I really do hope that this has been encouraging for you. Like I've mentioned in a few videos before, or if you've never watched it, then I'd like to share this with you right now, that these reflections are continuations of conversations that begin in the email inbox. If you've never signed up for SoulFire Conversations, I'd like to encourage you to sign up for SoulFire Conversations now. There'll be a link in the caption of this video, wherever you're watching this. Please click it. It'll take you to a sign-up page where you get to put your name and your email address. And the moment you're done with that, you're going to get the week's reflection. It's actually waiting on you. So just click that, put your information in, and you only sign up once. Every single Monday when I release a new email, you get that. In the meantime, thank you for making the time to watch this video. I look forward to seeing you again next week as we continue the conversation about overcoming fear. See you and God bless.